Your hands are flat against the stone. You can feel the cold of it moving up through your palms, through your wrists, into your arms. You stopped noticing it weeks ago. Now, you notice it again. It is not yet dawn. It is May 29th, 1453. And you have been on this wall for 53 nights. You are not a soldier. You were never trained for this. You are a woman from this city, a city you have lived inside your entire life. And somewhere in the last 7 weeks, you picked up what the men beside you put down, and you stayed. Most of them are gone now. You look to your left. You look to your right. The spaces where people stood yesterday are empty. You stayed. You don't fully know why. That question will follow you for the rest of your life.
You grew up knowing what these walls had survived. The Arabs came. The walls held. The Bulgars came. The walls held. The Crusaders came. Your own people. Men carrying the cross of God. And even they could not break through from the outside. They had to be let in. Through betrayal. Even then, it took betrayal. That is what you grew up inside. Not just a city. A proof. 1,000 years of proof that some things cannot end. When the Ottoman army arrived in April, you watched them from this wall. You counted them the way you count things that don't seem real. 70,000 men, maybe more. Cannons so large it took 60 oxen to drag each one into position. You had never seen a cannon before. Nobody inside these walls had. They fired at the walls. The walls held. For 6 weeks they held. And each day they held, something in you hardened into conviction. The city had survived everything. It would survive this. You were not naive. You were not in denial. You had evidence, 1,000 years of it. You were simply wrong.
3 weeks into the siege, you saw the emperor. Not from a distance, close. Close enough to see that he was not sleeping. Close enough to see that the man holding this city together was doing it on something thinner than faith. Something closer to will, and will alone. He was riding the walls, asking. That is the word you keep returning to. Asking. The last Roman emperor, on horseback, asking his own citizens for gold to pay the men defending them. The treasury was empty. The soldiers were not enough. He needed more men. Men cost money. And the money was behind closed gates. You watched him stop at a merchant's house. A man you knew by name. A man whose family had lived inside these walls for generations. The same as yours. The gate stayed closed. Constantine rode on. You stood on that wall and understood something you did not want to understand. The city was not going to be saved by the people it had spent 1,000 years protecting. They had made a calculation. Their gold on one side, the wall on the other. They chose their gold. The cannon fired again. You felt it in your chest before you heard it. You stayed. On the night of May 28th, you went to Hagia Sophia. Everyone went. There was an understanding, unspoken, that this was what you did when you did not know what else to do. The church was full in a way you had never seen it. Not joyful, not ceremonial. Full the way a room fills when people are afraid and need to be near other people who are also afraid. Candles, the smell of bodies pressed together, the sound of prayers spoken by people who were not sure anything was listening.
Just spare us this once.
You prayed too. You were
Just
not sure
once.
what you asked for.
Once.
Something general, something that felt like, please. You walked back to the wall. You counted the defenders near your section. The number was wrong. Men had gone home in the night, back to their families, back to whatever small chance of survival existed inside the city, rather than on top of it. You understood this. You had thought about it yourself. You could not do it. You looked out at the Ottoman fires, every direction, a full ring of light surrounding the city like something tightening. From their camp you could hear, faintly, carried on the wind, singing, singing. They were celebrating before the battle had begun. You did not sleep. Nobody on your section of wall slept. You just stood there in the dark and waited for a dawn you were not sure you wanted to arrive. Dawn comes the way you feared it would. You hear it before you see it. A sound so large it stops being a sound and becomes a pressure. The stone beneath your hands shakes. The air shakes. The final assault has begun. You don't think. Your hands do what they've learned to do. Your eyes find the horizon and hold it. You breathe. For a while, minutes, maybe longer, time has stopped working correctly. You hold. The wall holds. You hold. And then,
Look north.
the cry
Did you
comes
hear
from the
that?
north. A single voice,
The
then
horde has
10,
come.
then the
May God
wall
protect
itself
us.
seems to carry it. The city has fallen. A rumor moves toward you
coming
like
sooner than
fire along
expected.
dry
It's
grass.
impossible.
A
We can't
gate,
hold.
someone says.
I hear something.
A
It's
small
close.
gate to the
He is
north.
right.
A postern
Look.
gate.
Listen.
Someone
They're moving
forgot
the
to
cannons
bar
into
it.
position. Are you certain?
The Ottomans
It sounds
found it
too
open
close.
and came
God
through.
help us if it is.
You will never know if this is true. Historians will argue about it for centuries. It doesn't matter now.
The wall is breached. Run.
What matters is this.
To the stairs.
The men
quickly.
beside you start
Leave the
running.
posts. Fall back to the
Not
city.
retreating,
To the
not
city
regrouping.
now. Run.
Running.
Save yourselves. To the gates.
And then, so do you. You are not ashamed of this. There was no decision, no moment of weighing options. Your feet moved because that is what feet do when everything around them is moving. You ran. The ones who didn't are still there. You survived. You are still not entirely sure how. In the days that followed, you learned what happened in fragments, the way you always learn the worst things, piece by piece, each piece worse than the last. The emperor's body was found in the streets, stripped of his imperial regalia, the purple boots, the jeweled clasp, so that he could die not as a sovereign, but as a soldier. Unrecognizable. His body was never positively identified among the dead. The last Roman emperor passed out of history and into legend, and nobody saw it happen. The merchant who closed his gate was among the first enslaved. The man who calculated his survival did not survive. The gold stayed behind his gate until someone else took it. You think about this more than you probably should. You stayed on that wall for a reason you could never name. Not patriotism. You had no particular feeling about empires. Not courage. You know the difference between courage and inability to leave, and you were the second thing. You simply could not find a reason to go. And that absence of a reason to abandon something,
kept you alive when calculation killed the people around you.
Think about the city you live in now, the institution you work inside, the community you are part of. Think about the last time something needed defending, not with weapons, not with walls, but with time, with money, with inconvenience, with the willingness to stay when leaving was easier. Think about who stayed. Think about who closed the gate. Constantinople did not fall because the enemy was strong. Mehmed's army was enormous, and his cannons were devastating, yes. But the city that had survived 1,000 years of enemies fell in the end because enough people inside it made a perfectly reasonable decision. Their arithmetic made sense. It always makes sense. It always has. The question Constantinople leaves you with is quieter than most, and harder. Would you have opened the gate?